Good morning, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome. Um, we've got lots of people all pouring in from the waiting room, but we have a packed agenda. So we are going to make a start. A couple of notes, just housekeeping. We're recording the meeting, which is great, which that means we can share the recording with you and so you can pass it on to colleagues who weren't able to join. So yes, and we will share that afterwards. Can you make sure that your video and audio are off unless you are speaking? Thank you very much. Ben,
I
can
would I would press deny to that request, Ben. Thanks.
great. Ben, can you move to the next slide, please? Okay, so we've quite a lot to get through. We will be strict on time so that you are all ready to get back to your days at 1:30. So we're going to have a quick introduction to us at the Hub. We're going to talk a little bit about some of our work, including a Retrofit Alliance of Nations, working groups overviews, which the working groups will just have a really brief 5 minute to tell you everything about what's going on. We're going to talk a little bit about a very exciting project that we've been working on around the private rental sector with impacts on urban health. We'll talk a little bit about our outputs and the forecast of outputs that are coming and those that have been, and as well our events and webinars, which seem to be almost continuous at the moment. We have, just a reflection from me, we have so much going on, and we kind of realize that when we compile the slide deck and hear from all of our working groups. So we may miss bits and we may remember bits as we go on. So just bear with us. We're very grateful to have all of you joining us today, and we hope that you get something out of today's session. Next slide, Ben, please. And next slide again. So this is our second open meeting. Actually, we had an open meeting, I want to say February earlier this year, and it was really great way of us sort of doing a sweep of everything that's going on. So for anybody who doesn't already know, and I'm presuming that's not very many of you, we are the National Retrofit Hub. We are a non-profit collaborative organisation, and our mission is to enable the local delivery of retrofit at scale. The hub was established in 2023, in March 2023. Rachel and myself as co-directors have been enrolled since July 2023, so a bit more than a year now, and my goodness, there's an awful lot has gone on since then, and we are really happy to have our team and our chairs here today as well, and hopefully you'll hear from all of those. And we are here to essentially collaborate and convene everybody working in retrofit space in order to create impactful outcomes and outputs that help us with that mission of trying to get to the retrofit of this nation. No small task. Every time I say that, I just go, what? That's fine. It's great. Next slide, Ben, please. Yes, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the Retrofit Alliance of Nations with Built Environment Smarter Transformation. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I can't see very many people, but Katrina Jordan, are you here on the call? Unmute yourself if you can. I don't know if you are here. I will wait to see if Katrina joins us. But can we have the next slide, Ben, please? Katrina, if you are here, just unmute yourself and interrupt me as we go. So the Retrofit Alliance of Nations is a sort of a collaborative relationship that's been building with partners in the form of BEST, Built Environment Smarter Transformation in Scotland, with the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. And obviously we've got huge thanks to them because of the amount of work and experience that we're learning from them with their national retrofit strategy that is operational in Ireland, with the Welsh Zero Carbon Hub, and with the Belfast Retrofit Hub as well. And the idea with this is to extend knowledge, learning and exchange across our own immediate contexts. And it is also there to try and build consensus and confidence across the sector. And of course, recognizing the urgency of that of the targets for delivering retrofit that we're all facing, we absolutely need to embody this collaborative approach and this really, really strong ethic of sharing knowledge so that we can learn quickly and try and test things quickly and try and work out what's going to be applicable for us, but also try and see what might inform policy recommendations when we're looking at what is succeeding elsewhere. We're looking at 4 focus areas. We're looking at defining success outcomes, which is a piece of work we'll come to a bit later on. We're looking at driving demand as a group of nations. And I've mentioned there this co-creating a communications toolkit. That name has changed slightly, and Cara will talk to you a little bit later about what's happening around the public engagement and the comms work that we're focusing on. Obviously, we're keen to examine and explore quality assurance, and that's obviously a big topic, which will come up a couple of times, and data and finance. So those are areas that as this alliance, we're trying to look at collectively and see what are the ways that we can build knowledge and information together. Connected to this is the International Retrofit Conference that's being hosted by BEST on the 7th of November. You can get tickets at that website link, and you will be treated to an incredible program of speakers, workshops. Some of those are listed there, and there's going to be some other exciting announcements coming out of that. So you're all really, really welcome. Tickets are free, quite incredibly, and you get to be in the beautiful Paisley Town Hall if you're able to attend. So do have a look at that. And the last piece I wanted to talk about in the international space is that our second co-creator initiative is our international models of delivery. We are collectively working on collating a directory of international models of delivery to understand what is the potential for adoption of good practice and what might potential policy recommendations be as we examine all of those cases. So there's a really great bunch of people who have put themselves forward to be the co-creators for that, and we hope to have something published soon. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, please. These are our working groups. You're going to hear from each of them, so I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but we have Working Group 1, and you'll hear from Dr. Asan Khan and Lizzie Westmacott shortly about that activity there. Working Group 2, we are happily joined by Jade Lewis and Megan Adlin, who are going to talk to you about the activities in the Supply Chain Products and Solutions Group. Working Group 3, I'm happily joined by Cara Jenkinson and Pippa Palmer, who are going to talk to you about the breadth of work happening there. We've got Working Group 4, which is a slightly different rotating chairship. So Rachel is going to tell you a little bit more about that. Working Group 5, which is our delivery approaches group chaired by Donal Brown, and also supported by Arab, Paul Testa from HEM Architects, and a bunch of other people as well. And Working Group 6, Driving Uptake, which Cara Holmes will tell you a little bit more about. I am flying through this, I'm conscious of time. Next slide, please, Ben. So now our Miro board, we're going to drop a link in the Miro board in the chat now. And then I think we're going to try, and Ben's maybe going to stop sharing for a moment, and Rachel's
I'm going to
try to share so
Absolutely.
you can just see the Miro board. We'd invite you to take a look at the Miro board. It's arranged here. These green lozenges represent each of our working groups. What we have done is lay out the objectives, which is the left-hand column of each one. So these are the objectives that were collectively set with the working groups. You're very welcome to add your thoughts and opinions about whether those are the right objectives or not, but these are the things that we've been working to. We have what was our anticipated activity back in February. These are the things we thought we would do. And now we have happily reached the stage where we've got a number of outputs that we have co-created. The links to those are shown in the green bubbles, and there probably is more that we haven't fully put on there. So we're very happy for you to use the post-its to tell us what you think about this, to point out other activity that you think we should be aware of. This is a great resource for us to be able to capture all of that. And you can see Rachel is showing you there how to use these. So please, please do, if you've got a thought, log it and let us know what you think. At the bottom of these 6 lozenges, we've also got cross-group themes. So things like QA and basic building physics gap, well evidence gap there, and EPC work, which you can read more about, and Rachel will tell you more about what we're doing there. So there are some cross-group themes. If you think there are others that you don't think we're referencing at all, please do drop those on. And then the pale peachy bits are some of our other activities that are sort of not working group specific, but maybe relate to lots of other things. So the link has just been put in, not now, please, Ben, if you can just say that, please. Or Rachel, that's probably you, is it? I don't know who has that.
I haven't put it in the chat yet, but
Okay.
Yeah, I put it in the chat, but
we are just very quickly showing you the Miro. We're not expecting you to read anything on that Miro in this moment. You can take some time to look at that as you go through, and we will go back now to Ben sharing the slides so you can get the overview of the working group activity. I'm going to just stop that. Okay.
while he does that, I think it's probably worth saying that absolutely incredible to see so many people introducing themselves in the chat. It's really, really good to see so many people from across the retrofit sector joining us. So yeah, very exciting to see that. And also to say that there's a lot going on in the hub, and we'll more than likely miss something that we're doing because there's a lot happening. So this should be a bit of a whirlwind tour, but yeah, feel free to explore that Miro in your own time and make comments after the event as well, because it might be quite a lot of information going forwards.
Yeah. So I do want to just say, please do bear with us because there is an awful lot of information. We're not going to quiz you at the end to make sure that you got it all right. And if you do have specific questions and you want to know more, you can always get in touch with us, and we're very, very happy to hear from you and to connect. So we're going to go over to working group 1, and I am going to set a 5-minute timer. Over to you, Asan and Lizzie.
Thank you, Sarah and Rachel, and I echo your comments regarding the chat and the breadth of knowledge we've got as the open session today. So thank you very much for everybody joining, and conscious I've used up vital seconds. So myself and Lizzie will be walking you through what has happened with Working Group 1. Hopefully we've got Louis Dalencourt, who helped with quite a lot of the substantive work across the working groups in the session as well. Could I get the next slide, please? Just to give everybody an overview or refresher of what Working Group 1 is focusing on. Very early on in the forming process of the working groups, we defined 4 key questions that were presenting as a North Star for us to try and take forward the task and finish groups. Those are listed on screen, but to ad-lib those, what is my home like was a unifying question. How do we create consistency around those sorts of things, and how do we make that understandable to everybody? And consequently, what does that building need to get it to net zero endpoint? How can I trust the work that will be delivered well? And how do I know that those technologies or measures that have been applied to these buildings will perform the way that we expect? So those North Stars have formed our sort of remits for the task and finish groups. And if you could go to the next slide, please. We're now at a point where a lot of the work is now being surfaced into something that's practical and usable by the sector. An example of that is the outputs for logbooks and the work that the working group has done in understanding the scope of logbooks, what they will deliver, and the intent by which they should be used. Again, a lot of content on screen. Our apologies, but we wanted to show the breadth of work that's been done, and that information can be read through or dissected by you at your leisure. To give you a snippet of where we think we're headed, we appreciate that the logbook community is starting to grow. We're trying to support that in a systematic way, and we understand that those logbook mechanisms will need to be federated or linked to other bits of information. So how do we, as a national retrofit hub, provide consistency as those things emerge and start to get applied to real world projects? Moving on to our next bit of activity, because I think the logbooks are available, or the guidance is available for you guys to peruse. We've now got to a point where the archetyping work has been well and thoroughly been developed to a point of maturity, so that we can provide, again, practical evidence and support to people developing archetypal approaches to retrofit. We see that as a very good methodology for consistency being developed across the sector. But in developing that consistency, we need to make sure that the quality and outputs of those archetypal formats and guidance documents are similar or compatible. Briefly, the contents of that guidance includes the type of information you require to develop an archetypal approach, the mechanisms by which you can target a particular outcome, and also a potential mechanism for suggesting the measures that will be applied to a particular set of archetypes. So again, that methodology and guidance is available and will be made available more broadly in the near future, I hope. And with that said, over to Lizzie.
Yeah, so this guide's being released imminently. And what our ask of you is that please, everyone, start to use this, read it and use it. If you're someone who's commissioning work, use this to help form your brief. If you've been asked to create a retrofit feasibility study or something similar, please use this to inform what the contents of that study might be. And then critically share that output with the National Retrofit Hub so that it can be more widely available. And the guide does include some guidance around Creative Commons licensing and peer reviewing and so on. And then more generally on archetypes, we'll be continuing to work on archetypes because they're really important to how we go about retrofitting at scale, particularly around naming conventions, and that feeds back into the logbook stuff, but also about how potentially gathering post-occupancy evaluation data by archetype. And then very quickly, last slide, please. I think I've got a minute to talk about quality assurance, which is a large topic. So it was really clear that everyone felt that quality assurance is really important in retrofit, but how to achieve that over the vast range of project types and scales, more of a challenge. In order to achieve quality assurance, the schemes need to be implemented, and for that to happen, those involved need to actually be aware that those schemes exist. Well, that's not always the case, it turns out. Those people also need to feel that such schemes are appropriate and relevant, which is also not always the case. For example, people understand very different things by the same words, such as warranty. It's a whole minefield. And in spite of lots of attempts to improve quality assurance from different angles within the industry, when something actually goes wrong, homeowners and residents aren't necessarily protected at the moment. And that's what we're trying to understand and improve. So we've spent time listening to people from the industry broadly, but specifically, for example, from Trustmark, speaking to repair, maintenance and improvement builders, speaking to some of the authors of Past 2035 and so on. Thank you all so much for your time. It's really complicated, and even establishing the problems has been a huge challenge. So far, we've created this terms of reference document, which you can see very small here. We'd love you to get involved in our task and finish group to give some input into that. And also we've created some kind of process maps to establish how and when quality assurance does actually get involved in people's retrofits. We'd love your input into that. Do get in touch if you'd like to be involved. And that is definitely 5 minutes.
You are absolutely bang on time. So gold stars to both of you. Follow that, everybody else. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. We would invite you, if that was triggering things for you of interest, then please interact with the Miro board for the working group 1 activity. Another point to note, that if you are interested in getting more involved in any of the working groups, you can sign up for our working groups on our website, and we will ensure that you are only receiving the content and the information related to the particular working group that you're interested in if you select that when you're registering. So we can do that, and through that you'll find out when the next meeting of the given working groups is, and we will loop you into that work that way. So now, happily, we are going to hear from Megan and Jade, and I have seen the amount of work that they want to share with you. So 5 minutes, good luck, over to you.
Thanks very much. Hi, everyone. Yeah, if you want to go to the next slide, please. Just a reminder first of the objectives for Working Group 2. We boiled it down to 2 overall objectives, which led to 4 task and finish groups. So firstly, delivering a solution agnostic approach to products, technologies and services. And that's about defining and embedding a solution agnostic approach, but also creating a case study library that surfaces all of those great solutions so that people can take a broad view of the solutions available to deliver the right outcomes. And then overcoming supply chain is one of the task and finish groups, and overcoming barriers to innovation is the other. So we're quickly going to update you on those. If you go to the next slide, please.
Thanks, Megan. So one of the first things we've done is to define what we actually mean by a solution agnostic approach. So what we mean is it's outcomes based, where the most appropriate products, technologies and services are integrated into the context of a whole house retrofit to minimise risk, protect the occupant, building and its surroundings. So it's inclusive of a lot of measures. We include energy efficiency, low carbon heating, controls, etc. There's a whole list there. But one of the things that is absolutely imperative is that the solutions are compliant with all the regulations and from responsible supply chains. And obviously there needs to be consideration as well to cost effectiveness within the solution selection. Next slide, please. So in terms of our first objectives to ensure that a solution agnostic approach is taken, we've defined this, it's now on the website. We've actually got a representative for each of the working groups working with the other working groups to make sure that this approach is taken. And our next step is to make sure that this message is getting through to the wider industry a lot more clearly. So making sure that it's in the prospectus and in future presentations of the National Retrofit Hub. And what do we want you to do? We want you to adopt this approach. We feel it's the right approach to retrofit. So please do take this on board in your future areas of work. Next slide, please.
Great. And then for showcasing products and solutions, we have developed a case study template, a lot of input to that from a lot of people. So we think it's hitting the mark. We've compiled a list of other resources because there's plenty in the market available already, which we would like to signpost to. We developed T's and C's for use of the website, whether you're submitting or viewing the information, and we're developing supporting guidance, which is almost ready. We've also set up a review panel so that there's a fair but certainly a process in place which ensures the quality of the content landing on the NRH website, which we're surfacing to you. So there's a lot ahead to kind of test the tool and issue the request, etc., trial and test the review panel, and then publish and promote case studies once they're approved. But our ask for you today, for the wider industry, is please keep an eye out for the case study requests when it does launch. Share your case studies with us, whether that's products, solutions, innovations. This is the opportunity to get them out there. And do use the case study library if you're delivering retrofit. If you go to the next slide, please. So overcoming barriers to supply chain, we purposefully paused this one because a lot of work's been going into the other 3 task and finish groups for now. But we have done an initial desktop review of publicly available research on supply chain barriers to retrofit, which has given us an idea of some of the general trends that are coming out. And from that, we're hoping to agree the specific actions for this task and finish group. And today we're one of our asks for you is to pop into the Miro board, and you'll see a couple of boxes under the working group 2 column, one for enablers and one for barriers to supply chain, and we'd love to get your thoughts. But also do let us know if you'd like to participate in this task and finish group. Just if you go to the next slide, I'll give you a flavour for what we think some of these barriers are going to be. So the desktop review did identify some common barriers. A lot of those are already being tackled by the NRH. So skills is already a working group, finance is already a working group, etc. 4 that perhaps stood out as maybe being areas that we could explore further is how we introduce more standardization to products and solutions and reduce complexity. Delivery routes to market, again, simplification and potential one-stop shops, manufacturing and merchant capacity and readiness, and how we can ensure a resilient supply chain, and forecasting, so how we can inform skills and materials planning with effective forecasting. That's some food for thought, but today we're asking you to please give us your thoughts on the Miro board. If you go to the next slide, please.
Okay, so one of the final things we've been doing is looking at overcoming barriers to innovation. There's a lot of work already going on in this area. So what we've been doing is just building upon that, supporting that work and making sure that that happens. One of the pieces of work is to draft a process for the approval of innovative products into government-funded retrofit schemes, and making sure that there is a process that takes you from one end to the other and you come out understanding what the costs are and what the implications are and what information is needed to get your products approved and used in the retrofit market. There's a lot of work been going on around EPC reform. We've been helping to feed into that. And one of the other things we've done is to try and capture where is innovation needed. So across the working groups, we've got a log that picks up if there's a need for a certain solution, if there's a need for a certain product, is something missing out there or that you're not aware of. Our other ask of you in the Miro board, there's another box in there, is where are innovations required? Where do you think there's missing products, solutions, techniques? If you can fill in your ideas on the mirror board, we'd be really grateful, and then we hope to take that forward in our future work. I think that's it from us.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And we'll go straight over to working group 3. But as just a reminder, Jade and Megan did mention using the mirror board. You know where that is, so have a look if that's of interest to you. Cara, Pippa.
Hello, hello. Cara, I think you're going to lead with this.
Ah, I thought you were, but I'm happy to. If I...
Never one to take the spotlight, Cara. You take it. You take it.
Yeah. Okay. So this is just a quick reminder of the task and finish groups that we ran. All of which are now complete. So you can see them there: roles, qualifications, training providers, and then the 2 types of procurement: the kind of privately purchased segment, and then the public procurement. And then looking at workforce growth, getting people into the workforce, and then the funding and policy asks that come out of all of that. Some of those groups were chaired by me, some of them by Pippa, and those are all now complete. If we go on to the next slide, please. We don't have time to go through all of the outputs that we have either produced or are working on, but we'll just give you a flavour. I wanted to mention the first one, which was a regional retrofit skills task force checklist, a long name, but basically the objective really is that learners wherever you are across the country can access good retrofit training provision. And in order to do that, we think that regional authorities working with housing providers, working with training providers, employers, coming together to work on a retrofit skills plan is essential. And in order to do that, they need to look at understanding the pipeline. How does the pipeline across housing associations, councils, etc. look like? Understanding local supply chains, getting procurement right, developing local SMEs, promoting retrofit careers, so a whole bundle of things. We produced a checklist that's available on the Knowledge Hub of the National Retrofit Hub. Thank you to various representatives of Net Zero Hubs and local authorities for reviewing that and helping us with it. Next slide, please. The next one we wanted to talk about, which came up very consistently across our task and finish groups, was the need to incorporate an understanding of building physics into all construction training. So we know that IFATE have already updated some of their apprenticeship standards to include building physics, and some colleges are now starting to teach building physics, but there's a lack of consistent training materials. So we're keen to work with awarding bodies on this, and if anyone is interested in helping us with that, do let us know. Next slide, and I think over to Pippa.
So where do we even start? This has been a massive, with 6 task and finish groups, a massive systemic review of the sector and where the gaps lie. But from it all, we've actually developed a series of policy and funding asks that cover everything from how colleges are funded and how we reach the marginalised, to how we develop training, to how we systemize the entire sort of, because retrofit is an emergent sector, how we regularize and standardize and get nationally standardized skills. So what we're looking at here is now to put together a national skills strategy, a cohesive national skills strategy, and in response to the new government moves to bring retrofit to the fore. What we want is a nationally agreed retrofit skills roadmap and a national retrofit curriculum so that there's standardization throughout. We want a national skills strategy with comprehensive funding for those actions that are very much needed, and very clear policy asks for the new government. We want to lay this out in a white paper. One of the really big things we want is to see retrofit skills appear on the table in these national green and energy policy development talks. We're hearing lots coming out, but they're retrofit skills particularly. We hear about retrofit, we hear about EPCs, we hear about, you know, social housing landlords, but retrofit skills, it's almost like under the carpet. It's not acknowledged as a major block to all those ambitions. So what we want to see is or bring together a very cohesive strategy that then puts retrofit skills on the table, and we're advocating for those to be part of that national conversation. And then we are doing so much, lots of our work is convening and bringing people together. So we have an ongoing group that sits under the 6 task and finish groups, where we bring together the national leads, England, Scotland and Wales, and major cities. So the major cities are also represented, and also heritage, so that we bring these people together to sense check what we're doing and the decisions we're making and our research findings, and make sure that their needs are represented across all facets of skills development, and that we also get the nuances, because there are differences within the different, you know, between England and Scotland, and how they work, where we have devolved skills development. We also work with so many people, so many organizations have stepped forward to aid here and to contribute, but we also work with well, the organizations you see there, the Retrofit Academy, an HDG, somebody put an HDG.
Yeah, National Homes Decarbonisation Group.
Oh, sorry, do you know what? I live for acronyms. If you're in Retrofit, you live for acronyms. You got me at last. And obviously, we do a huge amount. Many people, I've just been looking at the chat. Many people on the call today have contributed to the task and finish groups, you know, with enormous knowledge and insights that have been, you know, invaluable in helping us get where we are. But it is, as Sarah's opened this, a job of convening and listening and reflecting back what the sector needs. So we're hugely grateful for the support of all those organisations.
That's your time.
I was just about to end. So thank you.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And that's only skimming the surface of the activity that's coming out of Working Group 3. So again, if you're interested in the skills space, please get in touch via our working group joining facility on the website or on the Miro board. There are lots of ways to get involved, and you'll be able to get the full overview of Working Group 3 activity, which is soon to come. Over to you, Rachel, for the Working Group 4 update.
Yeah, thank you very much. So as Sarah mentioned, our Working Group 4 is jointly chaired and a rotating chairship by the Green Finance Institute, and with them we've run a number of sessions and roundtables. On the Miro board you can find the write-ups of those, and we've got plans for future roundtables with them in the future. But what we wanted to do was take the opportunity to use this slot to discuss a project that we've been doing with Bankers for Net Zero, but could probably more accurately be described as a cross-cutting theme. So next slide, please, Ben. So we've been doing some comprehensive research on EPC reform. Bankers for Net Zero has been putting together the financial aspect of that engagement, and our work there has been specifically sponsored by Knauf Insulation, Lendology and Mixergy, so we're very grateful to them. Next slide, please. For us as the hub, it's really important that we understand what's happening out there already, and that we don't repeat work that others are doing. So we started this with a comprehensive literature review and helping to make that visible to everyone in the sector. And then we took up some engagement. So we convened our working groups 1 and 2 on EPC reform. Those groups generally have people who are more focused on sort of standards, technical design, project planning, supply chains, the sort of more technical end of the sort of spectrum. Then we met with Bankers for Net Zero and about 30 financial specialists, because the finance industry has got really specific needs from EPCs as well. And then finally, we convened our working group 6 on citizen engagement and customer need, because fundamentally energy performance certificates are the main, if not only, way that most people living and renting houses can navigate the energy efficiency of their home. So that's a really key group that we wanted to make sure we focused on. Next slide, please. So you can see already on our website, there is a library of all of the documents that we're aware of where different organisations have put forward proposals to reform EPCs, and they're filterable and searchable, and they've got descriptions that we've added to them as well. Next slide, please. We've also published a write-up of that literature review and feedback from our first workshop, that one that we held with Working Group 1 and Working Group 2. And since that write-up, we've done the other engagement that I mentioned and are still working on this as a project. So you can download that report from our website as well, and I'll put a link in the chat after I've finished talking. Next slide, please. So there's some key topics that these reports cover: presentation and accessibility, consumer awareness, the recommendations that are within EPCs, the metrics that are included, the validity period, the scope and the purpose. EPCs were invented or introduced for one specific purpose, and now they're being used by a variety of stakeholders for a variety of reasons. EPC data access for the industry was also really key. Assessor training and competence, and finance. Next slide, please. So we understand that there isn't going to be a silver bullet. We're not going to change EPCs right now and they're going to be perfect. We need some sort of roadmap to getting to the ideal scenario where EPCs are accurate, reliable, and trusted. We're using the right metrics to set the right targets. For example, should we be setting our carbon targets based on a cost metric, or should we be setting them based on a carbon metric? Fundamentally, what came out of all of our consultation was that health and comfort should be embedded. These should be about much more than just energy performance, but actually the way that our homes perform as a whole. And there needed to be some more detailed recommendations included that are improved. So we are in the process of developing what we think a roadmap would look like for EPC reform based on all the feedback we've heard. Next slide, please. That's something that we are looking to publish in mid-October after doing a final bit of consultation and a survey. Fundamentally, though, we need to make sure that EPCs work for householders. They don't have anything else. They're a really key group. Yes, maybe some really technical people in this audience really want to see energy use intensity or peak energy demand as the primary metric, but actually what is really important to householders is cost. We also are exploring the idea of adding a confidence rating so that you could incorporate real world data, verified build-ups, test data, and get a really high confidence EPC, but also support those 40% of people that don't have EPCs to get on the ladder with maybe a sort of virtual EPC that has a low confidence rating. We think the cost and carbon metrics should be improved, and we think they should be called those things so people know what they're actually measuring. And then we like the idea of adding new optional metrics on smart energy, so thinking about how we can respond to the grid demands, health of our buildings, resilience to overheating and flood. The recommendations should also be linked to those outcomes so that you can see, if I make this change, it's going to have this impact on my home. And all that really needs to come with more interactivity, more links, and more signposting. Next slide, please. So the next step is that we're about to release an industry survey on this so that we can seek an even wider selection of views. We're going to do a bit more collaboration with the finance sector, with Bankers for Net Zero. We're going to review the report and the recommendations with our advisory panel, and then we'll be publishing a final report, fingers crossed, by mid-October, in time for the imminent EPC reform consultation, and we'll also be running a webinar after that. That's it from me.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rachel. So next is Working Group 5. I'm just going to give a really brief update on that. Next slide, please, Ben. We published our State of the Nation review, which was a real big labour of love that had contributions and was supported by over 200 organisations and individuals in our network. I have to just, spoiler alert here, we don't have physical copies. It is only digitally available, but a contact of ours created these images for us to show you what that might look like if it was in a paper format, but don't come asking us for them because we don't have them. The purpose of this report was essentially to understand what does retrofit delivery look like at the moment across the UK, and that maybe was a bit of a naive question at first. we thought we'd end up with a 2-pager kind of, this is what it looks like, and 50 pages later and 8 months or so, the report was published. I'd encourage you all to look at it and you know, give us any feedback that you have. It's available on our website, in our Knowledge Hub, in our outputs and resources space. But essentially what this did was provide clarity and direction on the next steps that we probably suspected we would be taking. But this has really given us that mandate to follow through on some of those. Next slide, please, Ben. So after the report, we did a lot of analysis on the findings, and we arrived at a point where these 4 areas were things that came up. So it was planning policy, it was measuring outcomes and impact evaluation, it was looking at the grant structures, and public engagement. When we laid this out and did task and finish groups on each of these topics, we also realized that that was rather a lot of work. And I don't know if you've noticed, but we're a fairly agile, small team, and we deeply rely on the contributions of our network. So we need to be really, really careful with our resource, and we also need to be really targeted and really focused on what we think is going to deliver the maximum impact. So taking the end of this slide first, we have decided that in looking and examining the grant structures that are available, and given what we're seeing now in new policy emergence only just this week, we are going to continue to develop our relationship with the government through the different ministries and the context that we have, to be able to feed back to them about how the real world scenario of those grant structures is playing out, and provide that critical friend relationship. In terms of public engagement, at that task and finish group, we essentially realised that the best thing to do would be to channel the energy for that public engagement work into the communications work stream in Working Group 6 that Cara Holmes will tell you about once I have finished talking here. The 2 areas that we are holding on to and working on in Working Group 5, as well as a couple of other bits that we can come to perhaps at a subsequent meeting, is planning policy and the measuring outcomes and impact evaluation. So with planning policy, we have teamed up with London councils and their low carbon development team. The task and finish lead here is Madeleine Porker from Sussex University, and we are collaborating with Ashwin Patel within London councils. We collaborated on a workshop to help develop solutions for retrofit in heritage buildings. And through various range of workshops that were held both with London councils and their focus groups, as well as our task and finish group, a long list was compiled, and this produced a top 3 for a short list, which we workshopped last week, and 1 will be selected for further development as part of London Council's low carbon development team. Our relationship here is that we can see the benefit of learning from what might be working in a London context and then disseminating that and sharing that much more broadly. But it's really, really difficult to take on planning policy as a whole. So we're focusing narrow and deep on one specific area, and then we will disseminate that, and we will be able to map and pick up any other potential solutions that we can further workshop when we have that additional resource to do so. The measuring outcomes and impact evaluation piece, I think, yes, it has emerged in Working Group 5, but this is definitely a cross working group thematic piece of work. What we learned from the report was that the state of the nation can simply be described as shifting sands. What's being delivered isn't necessarily consistent. What success looks like isn't necessarily defined consistently either. So it's very, very hard to count how many things have been retrofitted, and of those things that have been retrofitted, what is successful and what does good look like. So what we are doing to start with is a literature review on what's currently being measured and why, what outcomes are being achieved but not always measured, what plans are already in place to improve outcomes measurement and impact. We're taking a kind of a 3 horizons approach to things in a lot of our workshop work. So stage 2 will be to look at what will be to try and get to a stage where successful outcomes and metrics are defined and identified. And we'll also be trying to do a bit of a vision for the future about what we all would like to see the future of retrofit in terms of successful outcomes and impacts, and what that might look like. If you want to get involved in any of that, same thing applies. And if you want to look at the Miro board, there's a couple of other things that have been outputs that we have delivered, not least the local authority retrofit advisory support services, which is another co-created tool for local authorities. And we've just completed a series of, that's my own timer going, a series of podcasts in collaboration with Built Environment Smarter Transformation, our partners in Scotland, on looking at all of our working groups. So if you also want to get a little bit more deep knowledge about what's going on across the working groups and you like a podcast, and there's a great series there for you too, and you can find that link in the Miro board. I think that's it, Ben. I don't think there's anything else for me. There we go. And we're going to hand over to Cara.
Hello, yeah, so this is going to be the Working Group 6 update, which is all about driving uptake. So can we go to the next slide? I think I only have 2 slides actually, so I can luxuriate and take my time talking about them. So what we have underway, and one of the first things that we wanted to do in Working Group 6 was a literature review to try to kind of understand what the landscape of demand is and what it looks like. So we kind of talk about driving uptake, or we talk about increasing demand for retrofit, but never really interrogated, I guess, what sits behind that. Like what has to happen to someone, or what kind of thought process do they need to go through before they decide, yes, I want to do this. So that was kind of what this literature review was kind of trying to discover, is there any work that helps us to set that out and establish kind of where we are at the moment. So just for clarity, the measures that we were looking at are energy efficiency measures that improve thermal performance, low carbon heat, home batteries and solar panels. And the way we've structured our literature search, which has now happened, and like thanks to amazing co-creators, who some of whom might be on the call, so thank you so much. We've started analysing all of this literature that we've gathered. So we've gathered it in these 4 topics. The first is awareness. So trying to understand how aware are residents of the actual need to make changes, because you're not going to do something unless you actually know that you need to do it. Then we've looked at attitudes. So how do people feel about it? Again, you're not going to do something unless you feel at least neutral towards it. If you're very, very against the thing, you're probably not going to do it. And then what ability do people have? So this is like really about practical stuff. Like if you're a tenant, you don't have that much ability. You might be able to do draft proofing, but you might not be able to do, you know, like heating system changes and things like that. So what other kind of contextual factors are there that limit people's ability to make change? And like I think some of the barriers we've talked about for the other working groups, like finance and things like that. And then the appropriate trigger points, like what is the final, like, okay, I know all this stuff, I'm interested in this stuff, I can do it, now I'm actually going to do it for real. Because we're also very much aware that whilst people can say that they're interested in heat pumps, or they can say they're interested in all these things, they're not actually doing it. So what is the point that's going to kind of actually make them do it? So that's what we're working on at the moment, and that literature is being written up and will be published as soon as it's written. I say very hopefully, and yeah, so that will be something to look forward to. And then if we go to the next slide. So this is our other big piece of work in Working Group 6. So this is just kind of kicked off, and it's all about communication. So the middle box that's here is kind of what was the kicker for this work, like what was the starting point. So we thought that in the absence of a national communications campaign aimed at increasing uptake, organisations are having to go it alone. So this approach is kind of resulting sometimes in duplicated effort and wasted resources as individual organisations kind of try to develop their own strategies and their own tools, and like they're doing their own research and all this kind of stuff. So what we thought is, could we as the hub help to provide almost that central point of kind of collection for things? We have the Knowledge Hub on our website, which holds a lot of resources. And could we do the same for the kind of communications resources that are out there? Because we're very aware that there are lots of like amazing work that people have done, huge amounts of effort that people have put in. So if we can showcase that and share that and spread that as wide as possible, then that's amazing. So that's kind of, yeah, where we started from. And then these little blobs around in a circle are the kind of things that now we're going to be looking at exploring in a bit more detail. So we've had our first meeting in this group. And if anyone wants to kind of get involved in this work, as people have said before, please just get in touch, because this is very much like early stages for this work. So things that came through, we're looking at person-led case studies. So we've talked a bit about like tech-led case studies, But what we'd like to do in this group is a bit more about how does it feel for the person, and how, like, what the results were, or like, how did it feel for them to get all of this work done, tying a little bit as well into that work from Working Group 5 on articulating benefits. What came up as well was that grant funding can be really difficult to navigate. So is there any way that we can make that more straightforward? Costs and benefits, again, leading back to that work in Working Group 5. Myth busting, we talked about. Directory of resources, which I've mentioned. And then the big one, I think, here is the bottom right one, the communications pathways. There was kind of some comments in our first meeting about how, is there a way that we could try to kind of tier or make a hierarchy of communications so that people, so like, say for example, you don't go and meet someone and you say, hey, get a heat pump, and that conversation comes out of the blue. Before you talk about that, someone might need to know something about like thermal efficiency or airflow or the need to change their heating system. So what are the, like, kind of the baby steps towards the places that we need to get to in terms of the bigger retrofit? So like, I don't know, maybe you don't talk about like mechanical ventilation until you've already talked about draft proofing or things like that. So yeah, that's kind of something that is underway, and I'm really very much thinking about, and yeah, is an idea under evolution, but I'm really excited about it and excited about all of this work. So yeah, please do, anyone, get in touch, and love to have you on board with this.
Thanks, Cara. So now we're going to talk a little bit about one of our projects with our partners, Impact on Urban Health, and I think I'm passing this back to you, Cara.
Yeah, I did not realise I was rolling straight through. I'm like, I'm off mute.
No, you're back on. And breathe.
So this is a project that we're doing with Impact on Urban Health that's looking at how to encourage uptake in the private rented sector. So we are convening stakeholders throughout across the industry to kind of develop a package of policy proposals to encourage the uptake of good quality retrofit in the PRS. And so on the side, there are some of the participants in the workshops we've had so far. And so we've held workshops, we're going to be doing some focus groups, and like we've done a few kind of more targeted meetings. And we really want to build a consensus around the change needed to improve the quality of homes and quality of life. And I think what makes this project even more timely, I guess, are those announcements that we've had at the Labour Party conference, really looking at the need to kind of drive this and move this forward. So I think this is a great time to be doing this work. Can we go to the next slide? So yeah, we've had a variety of workshops, and through those, what we've got are some emerging policy proposals that I will talk you through now. So they kind of really are structured around the idea that there's not going to be change in this market without obligation. This is very much an obligation-driven marketplace. Landlords are not likely to, off their own back, and change energy efficiency measures. So we've got obligations here, but they are supported by financial support, incentives, and advice. So the obligations that we've kind of looked at here are minimum energy efficiency standards. I think that, that's kind of a thing that's talked about so much at the moment. I think, yeah, really needed. Also with those suitable tenant safeguards there. Then what we have also talked about is landlords not willing or able to meet the minimum energy efficiency standards being encouraged to sell the properties. So rather than saying that, well, some people can't meet it, so we shouldn't do it, what we're actually saying is if they can't do it, then that's okay. Then there should be a mechanism for purchase, either through a local authority, a housing association, or wherever. So this is where the financial incentives come in. I see a chat, and like, for once it's timely, because I'm always seeing these pop up and they never relate exactly to what I'm talking about. So there we go. So yes, this is exactly where the financial support comes in. So we talked about the need for an appropriate range of market-based financial products to help meet upfront costs for people that want to meet those minimum energy efficiency standards. And then we've also looked at the use of innovative funding and repayment models. So things like on-bill schemes and heat as a service, which is a different way of meeting upfront costs that might be more suitable for landlords on lower incomes who are less able to access finance. So those would be repayments through energy bills, or having some kind of like wrapped in sort of repayment thing. There's one at the bottom here that I can't quite see. That was tax incentives and pensions. Yes, all I can see is how many people are here. So we've got tax incentives potentially targeting pensions. Most landlords say that they became landlords as a pension investment. So actually targeting pensions as an incentive rather than income tax might actually be a more attractive offer for those landlords who are looking to soon leave the market. Then we've got advice. So we really want to be leveraging natural touch points. We really want as well, there needs to be advice to lay out clear pathways to compliance so people know exactly what they need to do when. We've also talked about potentially the need for third parties to act as trusted intermediaries, because we're aware that sometimes between the landlord and the tenant, there can be either just like a lack of knowledge at all, or potentially even some slight antagonism. Can we go to the next slide? So yeah, there is a lot more behind this, and this will be published in a full report towards the end of the year. I think our timelines for this are around like December, January. So yeah, please do again, get in touch if this is something you're specifically interested in. But yeah, know that this is very much a snapshot of the research that's done so far. So there's a lot more that sits behind here. So what we started developing is kind of recognizing that different landlords are really in very different situations. And so looking at how those pathways to compliance might be different depending on what that type of landlord is and what their individual situation is going to be. So what we've pulled out are 3 main landlord personas of a landlord that has only one property. There are a large number of landlords in England, especially, well, across the UK, that only have one property. Then we've looked at large portfolio landlords and landlords that don't have any debt outstanding on the properties. And then what I've got there in the green box going down is minimum energy efficiency standards. Like, we really see that as a necessary trigger to any kind of action. So that really needs to be in place for anything really to happen subsequently. And then we've got, for those landlord personas, a slightly different set of policy proposals that would help them to either reach compliance or to exit the market in a controlled and sustainable way. So for the single property landlords, like, we've got advice. I mean, for all of the landlords, we've got advice. They all are going to need advice. Although for the debt-free landlords, they're at the bottom, because they don't actually have that many natural touch points. Licensing might need to be something that is going to be needed in order to actually identify all of the people that are within these groups. And then we've got buyback schemes. So if going back up, sorry, I'm going up and down, I realize, not across. But for those single property landlords, we've got buyback schemes for those wishing to leave the market. And for those wanting to stay in the market, actually on-bill schemes and heat as a service is probably something that's going to work quite well, because it will kind of avoid the upfront cost issue entirely. And then for those large portfolio landlords, we've got the market-based financial products, or for people not wanting to manage the works themselves, again, on-bill schemes and heat as a service do actually work really well. There's been a lot of work at a European level on on-bill schemes as a mechanism, and that has been recommended, on a wider European level, is actually a really appropriate mechanism for the private rented sector. And then for the debt-free landlords, again, we've got those buyback schemes, and then the different sort of repayment methods. And I think that is my last slide. So yeah, I'll just end by saying that that's all coming out in the end of the year. And yeah, I'm really excited because it's the perfect time for this work to happen. So all ongoing, and very much we're on, I don't know, what do we say, shifting sands policy-wise. So a movable feast, but this project will be kind of drawing to a close towards the end of the year, and we'll be sharing all of that when it's finalized.
Yeah, it's really been an enlightening project to work on, and Cara has brought a lot of very useful research type skills and sort of getting under the skin of the levers that are there, and really sort of mapping that out and clarifying it. So if that is somewhere that you're interested in, keep your eye out for the work that will come out and that we can share around that. Over to you, Rachel.
Thanks very much. So if you've been following the very fast moving chat, you'll see that we've been putting links to all of the different resources that we've published in there. If you don't want to trawl through all hundreds of the messages, you can also go on the National Retrofit Hub website and click on the top on the button that says Knowledge Hub, and you can download them all there. Obviously, these are all continuing to come out, but since January we've been releasing outputs. So working group 3 with Cara and Pippa was our first, with the qualifications and training map. Then they also released the regional task force checklist that Cara talked about. And working group 1 released our guide to digital building logbooks. That was really trying to understand how incorporating retrofit, for example, retrofit assessments in digital building logbooks and scaling them up could influence the scale and pace and quality of retrofit delivery across the UK. We also mentioned our EPC reform work and our interim write-ups on the website. Working Group 5 has a retrofit advisory services for local authorities database. We were getting lots of people get in touch asking what services we could provide to local authorities, which isn't something that we necessarily were set up initially to do or had the resource to do, but we also thought maybe there might be services already out there. So we crowdsourced that resource and found that there were quite a wide variety of different retrofit advisory services already available, some paid, some not paid. So if you're a local authority, I'd really recommend you go online to check out whether there's any support you can access. And as we mentioned, one of our biggest outputs was the State of the Nation review that Working Group 5 led on. So yeah, please do go on our website and download those. The archetypes document will be released. Well, it will be informally launched at the AECB conference on Friday and then formally launched to everyone on Monday. So please keep your eyes peeled. If you're not already signed up to our newsletter, do make sure you do so on our website as well. Next slide. And we continue to be at lots of events. So next week, we've got a really exciting 3 days at UK Construction Week. If you're able to be in Birmingham, then please do come along. We're doing a day takeover on the Net Zero stage on the middle day. That's the Wednesday, the 2nd of October. We've got great speakers on EPC reform, retrofitting heritage buildings, leveraging data, housing retrofit at scale and commercial retrofit. And then we're also speaking on the main stage on archetyping with some great speakers from Field and Clegg Bradley Studios and Etude who have used archetyping approaches comprehensively in the past. So please do come along and see those. We also announced a couple of weeks ago that we'll be collaborating with the Building Centre for their Retrofit 25 exhibition. We're super excited about it. Sarah and I very much remember being at the launch of Retrofit 23 when we'd just been told that we were going to be appointed into our roles, but no one else knew. So there was a bit of talk about the hub then, and it's always been a sort of pivotal part in the calendar for us, and we think it's a really great opportunity to share all the great work that's happening across the sector on retrofit. So if you have projects that you would like to be featured, if you're thinking that you'd like to get involved in webinars, if you have a product or solution that you want to feature in that, come along to our information webinar on the 9th of October, because that will tell you more about the themes that we're exploring and how you can get involved in more detail. And we'll pop a link to that in the chat as well.
And it's being launched on my birthday, so come and celebrate with me.
Must remember that.
I mean, honestly, what else does somebody obsessed with retrofit do on their birthday? Launch a retrofit exhibition. So completely mad. Yeah, that thanks for that. I did want to just pick up on one thing that we haven't had a chance to talk about, and we're not going to talk about in great detail now. But one thing that comes up time and again, particularly at these events that we speak at, is we often hear from groups representing different communities, whether that is community energy groups, community retrofit initiatives, or other groups in civic society, where retrofit and quality of housing in their communities is becoming more and more of an issue, and people need more and more support. And I know that Steve Mackenzie's on the call, who was mentioning a course that they're developing with Open University. And Steve is really representing tenants in the space as well. We have got a project in the pipeline that is all about the provision of support for community organisations which we hope to be able to talk more about really, really soon. But it is a high priority for us. And it is something that we're trying to develop in a way that will be as sustainable as it possibly can be, because we don't want to run before we can walk in this space, and we want to make sure that the information and the support and the infrastructure that we're going to be able to provide is something that can be sustained. So we would be really keen to let you know more about that. So I think what we have always tried to do with these kind of overview meetings is just to give you that flavour of what, because we can't really pick and choose what to go into more detail with. Now, we did say this meeting would run until past, so we have got an opportunity to perhaps just look at the Miro board a little bit with everybody, but we also have the opportunity to finish a bit early. So I don't know, Rachel, if you were able to share your screen. Oh, and
Yep.
that was one thing that we hadn't actually mentioned. If you want to become involved beyond being involved in the working groups because your organization is aligned with us, or if you want to get involved in other ways, you can become a partner, you can become a sponsor, and there are lots of ways to do that. So you can check that out on our website. But oh, hello, Miro board, lots of activity happening in there. And we were quite confident that we weren't going to crash Miro, which we thought we might do in the last open meeting that we had, when we had hundreds of people in there, but I think there's only about 30 people in there now. It's great to see the activity and the comments and the reflections going down in there. One comment in the chat was, will we have the Miro board available after today's meeting? Yeah, we'll probably keep this open and live for, I guess, about a week, Rachel, would you say? So that we can give you time to reflect and think about things that are there. And we really, really do appreciate lots of comments. So Rachel, you've zoomed in there on one of the objectives in working group 1.
Yeah, so
yeah.
QA, I mean, this has definitely been a difficult one to figure out what our role here should be, because what we're aware of is that on the majority of able to pay schemes, QA, the formal QA processes such as Past 2035 and Trustmark aren't being implemented at scale. There's definitely something that's not quite working there, whether it's on awareness or whether it's on scheme design, whether it's on engagement, making that process easier. So we could say, yes, the schemes already exist and everything's fine. But what we know from experience, talking particularly to SME builders, is that those schemes aren't being utilised unless that they are mandatory. So that's where we see our role here as well. So it's a complex one. We definitely think that obviously Trustmark and the Past 2035 process and the MCS certification as well, and there's many that exist, are all fundamental parts of what's going to make this work. But we also think there's a role for the hub somewhere here in making sure the uptake is improved.
Can I just interject on that point? Sorry,
yeah,
something
please.
That, it's inevitably, we've spoken to quite a lot of people who are already involved in quality assurance and involved in Past 2035 and Trustmark and so on. What is really great is when we get to speak to the people who aren't using it. So if you're not using quality assurance on projects, please get in touch, because actually that's where the gap is. And when we have got to speak to people who aren't and understand why, that's been really useful. And actually that's the gap. So that would be a plea from us.
Thanks so much, Lizzie. I think also it's fair to say that we have got a lot of barriers and enablers happening in the supply chain. So there's going to be some great opinions here that we need to sort of come through. I think when we initially launched this as a task and finish group, it felt like a really big problem that we wanted to break down in more detail. And Jade and Megan have done a good job of starting that work. So I think if you did input anything into this barriers and enablers section, please do get in touch and let us know if you'd like to work on this with us in more detail. But yeah, I'm just going to zoom in so you can read for yourself some of the comments that have been made there. Obviously, you'll have the opportunity to go through this in more detail after the session.
I wonder if any of the working group chairs had any closing reflections based on what they've heard or seen pop up in the Miro or in the chat, which is huge. And I've seen lots of requests for whether or not we can copy and share the chat. We just have to do a little bit of sense checking on whether or not that's appropriate for us to do so, because obviously some people have openly shared their contact details, but we just have to do a bit of a sense check and be careful with what information that we are sharing. Of course, we want to ensure that you're able to connect with each other and to make the most of some of the great knowledge that has been shared in the chat as well. So we will make sure that we can share whatever we can off of that. But yeah, I don't know if any of the chairs or any of our team had anything they wanted to mention. No, everybody's just I can see people's faces just like obviously in the mirror board.
We've got Katrina has joined us from Best, so I don't know whether Katrina wanted to come in. Yeah.
Sorry, Katrina, if you were there and I didn't give you the space earlier, but floor is yours.
Excellent, thank you, Sarah. I just, I don't know, I missed the first 5 minutes. I'm not sure if you had mentioned the Retrofit Alliance of Nations.
We did, but I do wonder if I can be cheeky and ask you to just do a plug for the International Retrofit Conference and for Best Fest in November.
Yes, so I'm sure Sarah will share it on the chat. We have International Retrofit Conference on the 7th of November. And please, if you can, sign up and attend this. And also that the spaces are filling up fairly quickly. It will be co-hosted by myself and Sarah Edmonds as well. And you can see there on the screen all the kind of key speakers that we have, which we're really excited about. In the afternoon, we have a lot of activity and panel workshops and interactive activity as well. Around a whole host of from sort of skills and training, looking at our Alliance of Nations. So that will be a real key part of the activity that we're doing, which we're just a big thanks to the National Retrofit Hub for convening that that platform to allow us to do that. And what's really good about it is we'll be able to share best practice and learnings, in particular from nations that have national retrofit strategies in place. It also will allow us to kind of think about developing, for each nation and working towards sort of consensus and confidence in the industry through that knowledge exchange platform. And it's focusing on 4 key areas: defining retrofit, so successful outcomes, driving demand, quality assurance, and data and finance. So if you can, please make it along. We welcome you at Paisley Town Hall. So we have moved locations this year, which is a newly refurbished facility.
Yeah, it looks amazing. It looks really beautiful. And I also think I just wanted to mention before, Cara, I see your hand is up. I just wanted to mention that about the Retrofit Alliance of Nations sort of was born out of a trip that we took. So Best and some colleagues from Best, we went to Ireland in May earlier this year and really got to see what it is like. What does delivery of a national retrofit strategy look like on the ground? We got to visit some of the training centres, which are sort of mirrored in some of the things that Best are developing in Scotland at the campus that we've got up there. I say we because I don't know if anybody else knows on the call, but my other job is with Best as head of citizen engagement there, sitting in the retrofit team, working really closely with Katrina. So it was really, really wonderful to be able to get literally got our hands dirty with doing some training in Ireland, and met with colleagues in the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, had a day-long workshop looking at policy recommendations there, because there's a lot of overlap, and they're very, very keen also as organisations in Ireland to share and to learn from what's happening in the UK as well. So it's a two-way flow of information, and we're really, really happy to be able to work that way and work collaboratively. So thanks for the overview, Katrina.
Thanks, Sarah.
Karen, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I haven't been able to catch up with everything in the chat. I doubt anyone has, but there have been some great examples in there of good work going on. And So Pippa and I run, we have a kind of regular all working group meeting every few months, and it's nice to feature good examples of what's going on to allow people to learn about that work. So we will probably be reaching out to some of you on the chat, I would say, and anyone that would like to share what they're doing, do get in contact with us. I think the other thing, just to say, on the skills side, I just wanted to mention, obviously, the skills environment is really changing now. We've got Skills England. There's a big focus on things like, foundation apprentices coming in. And so, this is somewhere we're going to keep in close contact with IFATE as it merges into Skills England, and also with DESNES and their work on the kind of retrofit skills strategy.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Cara. So I think we'll probably wrap it up there. We will share everything that you've heard today, and we will make sure that you can follow the recording of today, the transcript to go with it, as much information as we can share from the chat, and all of the ways in which you can get involved with us. So thanks so much for spending your lunchtime with us, and we'll look forward to continuing the work together. I don't know, I think Rachel, it's exciting.
Thank you so much, everyone. And as always, please do, get in touch, go on the website, sign up to the working groups, make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter. And we'll do our best to share what we can from the chat. There's some great stuff in there, and I've hopefully read as much of it as I possibly can. But lovely to see you all, and thank you so much, especially to our working group chairs, for your updates. We know that trying to compress months and months of work into 5 minutes is a very tall order, so we appreciate you all doing that. And obviously, if you want to hear more from any of those groups in more detail, then do sign up to them and you can get the full download. But thank you so much for our working group chairs, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks, everybody.